Hi, I'm Dr. Gary Muskowski, and welcome to video 2 of a 6-part video series entitled How to Select an Executive Coach Who is Right for You. Video 2, the culture of the organization you are in and how it views coaching. Different business cultures view being involved in executive coaching in very different ways. Some view it as an investment in the executive who is highly valued by the company. Others view it as an indication that there is some problem with the executive. And other cultures are somewhere in between. This video briefly explores how the coaching process may be adapted given the cultural context you are performing in. Executive coaching can be a very effective process for accelerating development. I'm not going to go into detail about the research on the effectiveness of coaching because that is a much larger presentation, and a review of the research may not be of particular interest to you. However, you may be interested to know that between the years 2000 and 2011, there have been 234 outcome studies published focused on the effectiveness of coaching. While researching very different flavors of coaching and comparing them is complex, and the research is disjointed, which by the way is not unusual for research on complex human behavior. The general consensus is that coaching, when the quality is good, is very effective. While we advise buyer beware, you may already be a convert about the value of executive coaching. Not everyone is a convert, and not all business cultures view investing in executive development in the same way. Some cultures assume that executives need to be supported as lifelong learners in an ever-changing world, and others view anything other than technical training as a sign of weakness. In other words, they assume a high-potential executive should have the wherewithal to learn what they need to know on their own and on the fly. How your organization views coaching may influence how you approach the coaching process, and each alternative has its advantages and disadvantages. Here is an example of a top management culture that was a toxic environment for successful executive coaching. The board of a well-known financial institution, which will go nameless, recently recommended that the top executive team needed to be more aggressive in its talent management efforts. To appease the board and demonstrate a symbolic beginning of talent management leadership, the entire top executive team completed individual 360-degree survey and feedback debriefing processes. Once the top executive team completed the process, the initial plan was for the pilot process to be selectively cascaded out to the rest of the executives and managers in the business. I was asked to debrief 5 out of the top 9 executives regarding their respective 360-degree surveys. There were several executives who had some disturbing ongoing conflicts with others or significant disconnects with their direct reports. Only 1 out of the 5 executives asked for some additional coaching, and then, after 2 additional coaching sessions, which he said were useful, he abruptly changed his mind. Skeptical, I asked the new head of talent management of the company if she thought there would be additional interest in executive coaching. She stated that given the previous history of the company's culture, stimulating interest in more than just nice-to-know feedback would be a significant challenge, but a challenge she was prepared to pursue. Historically in this business culture, an executive was only offered an executive coach as a last-ditch effort to save them before they derailed. It was suspected that the offer of coaching was often used as a preemptive strike against a possible lawsuit for the likely following termination. Any executive who is acculturated equated executive coaching with a sign that they were in real trouble or as a sign for a need for significant remediation at best. The head of talent management intended to change that culture. She was gone from the company less than 18 months later. In sharp contrast, another fast-moving company offered executive coaching to people who were considered to be high potentials, with the intent to accelerate their development towards advancement. Incumbents at the director and VP levels became concerned if they had not been offered the opportunity to work with an executive coach. To not be offered a coach was perceived to be a sign that they were either being overlooked or passed over for advancement. Beyond situational or remedial coaching, you will need to decide your comfort level with having a visible executive coach. For example, for more comprehensive coaching processes, this will include a coach interviewing all of your 360-degree stakeholders, at least by telephone. If the limited presence of an executive coach is not culturally accepted as a positive sign, you may want to consider a form of low visibility coaching, which some refer to as shadow coaching, where the usual feedback about your performance, leadership, or influence skills are not overtly collected. The downside of this approach is that you and the coach may not have fuller access to the perceptions and expectations of each individual stakeholder. This will limit your ability to obtain an accurate reading of how you are perceived by others and their insights into what you need to do differently. You and your coach run the risk of operating in your own little bubble, disconnected from the rest of your world. Also, a seasoned coach uses 360-degree interviews to shape the expectations of the respondents and not just collect information. By the questions the skilled executive coach asks, he or she can leave the respondent with a more balanced set of perceptions of the target executive. To visibly reinforce a fertile environment, it never hurts to have a senior sponsor, preferably a line executive, communicate overtly that executive coaching is considered to be a valued investment in the manager or executive coachee, and that a positive return on that investment is expected. Supportive air cover always helps. So the cultural support for your pending executive coaching is not a simple black or white issue, as most cultures are mixes of gray in their support for executive and leadership development. But even in the most toxic cultures, low visibility shadow consulting can be valuable. If you operate in a positive culture, you have a lot more flexibility in pursuing your growth. This can often involve individual coaching, learning as part of an internal group delivery of executive education, and participation in external learning experiences. Assuming you have a sense of the dominant culture's view of executive coaching, do you have better clarity about how visible the executive coaching can be? Does it affect how explicitly you can ask others for feedback and expect support from others as you attempt to change? The next video in this series, Video 3, is intended to help you assess your own readiness for being fully involved in the coaching process, assuming it is more than just receiving nice-to-know feedback. It takes two to tango. Let's start with you, and then assess your potential partner, the executive coach, later in Video 4. Please select Video 3 now.